Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're moving away from state-sponsored hacking and economic sabotage to look at a vulnerability that, well, it strikes at the very foundation of human society.
It really does.
And for all the listeners of the Cyber Midnight Club, and especially for those who follow the crucial work of Alberto Daniel Hill, we're conducting a forensic analysis of what might be the most insidious zero-day exploit of our time.
And that term zero day, it's absolutely purposeful. A zero day, as we always discuss, is a flaw in a system that's completely unknown to the developers.
Right, there's no patch for it.
There's no patch, no built-in protection. And what we're arguing here is that the romantic relationship, that foundational unit of human connection, it's been compromised by a persistent, unpatched vulnerability. And that vulnerability is social media.
Exactly. So our mission today is a deep dive, a really comprehensive report on what we're calling the toxic ecosystem of digital romance. We've pulled together some compelling evidence detailing how platforms like, Facebook, TikTok, WhatsApp, they don't just function as background noise.
Yeah, not at all.
They function as a proactive man-in-the-middle attack. They are literally stealing attention, they're distorting reality, and this is the crucial part, they are weaponizing our innate human need for validation against our own partners.
And we have to understand the gravity of this. I mean, this report goes so far beyond just, arguments over who liked whose photo. We are looking at a fundamental criminological shift. The, let's say, traditional crime of passion, which was always born of private heat and proximity, it's mutated.
Yeah.
It's become performative violence.
Performative violence.
Yes, it's often choreographed and broadcast specifically for a digital audience. We're going to look at cases that range from, lethal neglect, where a virtual child was actually prioritized over a biological one, all the way to cold-blooded, live-streamed murder.
That sets a truly terrifying stage. So let's unpack this, and I think we should start where any good forensic analysis must, by just quantifying the damage. What does the data actually tell us about this digital toll?
Well, the statistics aren't just, correlative suggestions. They underscore a really demonstrable, quantifiable toll that social media takes on intimate relationships. This isn't just a feeling of tension. It's a measurable risk factor.
Right. And the first source package we looked at, it really lays out a grim reality, especially around infidelity and marriage dissolution. We're seeing, for instance, surveys from the American Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers. They find that a staggering 1 in 3 divorces explicitly cite social media.
1 in 3.
1 in 3. And usually it's Facebook that gets named. It's kind of gotten this reputation in some legal circles as a facilitator.
And if you drill down into the, the mechanics of these breakups, you find that somewhere between 20 and 33% of all divorces involve the discovery of cheating.
Okay.
Cheating that was either started, coordinated, or ultimately exposed through social media messages, posts, or, hidden accounts. The platform itself provides both the archive and the communication channel.
So it makes it easier to cheat, but also easier to get caught.
Precisely. It makes the affair easier to conduct, but the detection far easier too.
And what I found fascinating here was the correlation found in academic studies. It goes way beyond just anecdotal reports from lawyers. Research from places like Boston University found that heavy social media users, and they define heavy as, spending significant time on these sites, are 32% more likely to actively think about or consider divorce.
A third more likely.
Yeah.
And what's more, when researchers looked at the relationship between just general platform adoption and divorce rates, the findings were, they were profound. Some studies show that users are roughly 20% more likely to divorce than non-users.
Just by being on the platform.
Just by participating. And even more telling, some economic and sociological studies, which controlled for all sorts of factors, they linked a mere 20% increase in Facebook adoption in a certain geographical area to a 2 to 4% rise in that area's divorce rates over time.
That is profound. It moves the platform from just being a benign reflection of society to, a systemic risk factor. It's like introducing a corrosive agent into the environment.
Exactly. And this corrosive agent is also a weapon that walks right into the courtroom. We see that 81% of divorce lawyers now report a significant increase in using social media evidence.
So DMs, photos,
direct messages, incriminating photos, timelines of activity, all used to influence legal outcomes. And this is critical because that evidence is being used to affect alimony, to demonstrate character flaws in custody battles, or to prove that someone's been wasting marital assets.
So it transforms these private disagreements into public, legally binding evidence. And I imagine that just feeds the paranoia we see documented in couples.
Oh, absolutely. A Pew survey showed that 45% of people in a relationship admit to snooping on their partner's devices.
Almost half.
Think about that. Nearly half of all couples are engaging in digital surveillance of the person they supposedly trust the most. This creates what we call an environment of digital guilt, where you're constantly monitored and you're sort of perpetually guilty until proven innocent. And this constant state of alert, it leads directly to conflict.
I'm sure.
Studies in the UK found 25% of couples argue weekly, every single week, over social media stuff, perceived slights from likes or comments. And 17% of breakups were directly attributed to this specific tension. The platform creates infinite data points for manufactured jealousy.
So if we pull all this together, we can really define, what, 5 core mechanisms, the sort of attack vectors by which these platforms infiltrate and destroy intimacy, starting with the most basic betrayal.
First, is digital infidelity facilitation. The very architecture of the platform's DMs that disappear, the ease of reconnecting with the next, it just makes organizing and conducting both emotional and physical affairs dramatically easier to coordinate and conceal.
That's why people call it the cheating machine.
It's exactly why. Second, you have the jealousy engine. This is the mechanism that just leverages ambiguity. A simple, harmless like on a post from a colleague is instantly magnified by insecurity into definitive proof of something sinister. The platforms just ensure that partners are constantly monitoring feeds, and it breeds this acute paranoia.
Okay, what's third?
Third is addiction and neglect, which is, the physical manifestation of phubbing we'll get into. Just excessive engagement with the screen reduces the time allocated to meaningful, intimate connection. The ignored partner feels secondary, and that often leads to deep-seated resentment and, mutual digital isolation.
And fourth would be the curated comparisons, right? The whole Instagram versus reality thing. We are just perpetually bombarded with these filtered, edited, perfect versions of other people's lives and relationships.
And that breeds impossible, unrealistic expectations. It creates severe marital dissatisfaction when you compare that curated feed to the messy, complicated reality of your own life at home.
And the last one has to be the public nature of it all.
It's exactly. Number 5 is public spectacle and humiliation. The choice to air grievances publicly, to subtly shade a partner in a post, or, the most brutal version, changing your relationship status without even talking to your partner first.
Yeah, that causes irreparable humiliation. You're weaponizing the relationship itself, inviting everyone you know to comment on its destruction.
It destroys the foundation of trust.
So it's clear the architecture is designed to prioritize the platform over the partnership. Let's dig into the psychological vectors that are really underpinning these attacks.
Right, to fully grasp the violence and relationship collapse we're going to discuss, we really need to apply this cybersecurity metaphor to the psychological warfare being waged. These aren't just features, they're exploit kits targeting our basic human attachment needs.
Okay, let's start with phubbing. It sounds almost silly, but it's snubbing your partner for your phone. We called it the most pervasive form of intrusion. So in a network setting, a denial of service attack, a DOS attack, floods a system until it's unusable.
How does phubbing work as an emotional DOS attack? It's a perfect parallel. Just like a DOS attack floods a server with useless requests, phubbing floods the intimate connection with signals of non-availability.
Okay.
So when one partner is just absorbed in their screen during a shared meal or a conversation or an intimate moment, it sends this clear, repeated signal. My attention budget is maxed out elsewhere. You are not the priority.
And that just exhausts the other partner's ability to even try to connect.
It exhausts their capacity to maintain intimacy and effort. And the effect on the ignored partner's neurology, it's profoundly destabilizing.
It's not just a feeling, it's a physical thing.
It's a physical thing.
Yeah.
Forensic psychology, especially studies using attachment theory, show that phubbing activates a primal anxiety response. The research is clear. Attention withdrawal from a primary attachment figure, like a spouse, it registers in the brain's anterior cingulate cortex.
And that's the same part of the brain, though.
It's the same region activated by physical pain and social rejection. It literally hurts to be ignored for the phone. The neglected partner experiences an immediate and profound deficit in what psychologists call belongingness.
So the physical pain of rejection is being generated by a little black rectangle. But why is the device so irresistibly effective at keeping that hold on us?
That is the key. The device is programmed to win a fight against a human partner through psychological reinforcement. It operates on what B.F. Skinner called a variable ratio reinforcement schedule.
The slot machine.
Exactly, it's a slot machine.
Yeah.
Pull the lever, you scroll the feed, and you get a variable, unpredictable reward. A notification, a new post, a piece of shocking news, sometimes 5 seconds later, sometimes 30, and that unpredictability makes the behavior fiercely resistant to extinction. It just jacks up the dopamine release.
And your human partner is just too predictable to compete.
They're too predictable. A human partner requires mutual, sustained effort and offers, ideally, stable attention. That signal cannot compete with the hyper-stimulating, unpredictably rewarding, dopamine-rich environment of the screen.
And that creates a vicious cycle.
A vicious feedback loop. The partner who feels snubbed often retreats into their own screen to seek the validation and the dopamine hit they're missing at home. And suddenly you have mutual digital isolation where both people are in the same room but completely absent.
Okay, so that's the passive neglect. Now let's shift to active weaponized surveillance. You call it the algorithmic panopticon.
Yes, we're shifting from neglect to surveillance. Social media has effectively installed Jeremy Bentham's panopticon, that concept of constant, unverified observation, right into the bedroom.
And this turns every suspicious partner into a dedicated open source intelligence analyst, an OSINT analyst. They're just collecting and analyzing publicly available data.
Precisely. The platforms are treated as espionage tools, features like snap maps showing real-time location.
Oh, that's a terrifying feature.
It is. Or the public visibility of old and new likes, or the last seen and typing stamps on WhatsApp. All of these allow partners to conduct forensic-level monitoring of digital and even physical movements. People are using reverse image searches, analyzing photo metadata, comparing location tags to timestamps.
And the fact that this information is so technically accessible is what makes it so pervasive, right? Every single interaction is archived forever, creating this endless supply of retroactive ammunition for a fight.
And this is what we call the weaponization of ambiguity. Digital signals are inherently ambiguous. Was that 2 a.m. friend request innocent? Did that like on a photo from 2018 mean anything?
And the suspicious mind always fills in the blanks with the worst-case scenario.
The vacuum is filled by the worst possible interpretation. This leads to proactive surveillance and digital stalking, and the relationship itself is transformed into a police state that's governed by insecurity.
It's a toxic cycle. You monitor them because you don't trust them, and the act of monitoring itself becomes confirmation of your suspicion, no matter what the data actually says.
And the act of forensic checking becomes the relationship's central activity. It completely erodes the bedrock of trust. In high conflict or abusive situations, this escalates. Partners demand passwords or install spyware. The home is no longer a safe place.
Okay, so that brings us to the creator economy, where intimacy itself becomes a product. You call this main character syndrome.
Yes, and this is where it gets incredibly dangerous. For a growing number of people, especially influencers, the marriage isn't a personal union, it's content. It's an asset class designed to generate engagement.
And this introduces a third party into the marriage, the audience.
A critical and extremely dangerous third party. We see the rise of this main character syndrome, where the influencer literally views their life, and specifically their spouse, as just a supporting cast member in their movie.
And the incentives here are key, right? We're not just talking about vanity, we are talking about profit.
Exactly. The audience's attention, the likes, the views, the comments, that's the narcissistic supply, but it is also the monetary supply. It translates directly into AdSense revenue, sponsorships, merchandise sales. The partner's compliance with the perfect couple narrative is literally profitable.
That pressure, though, to maintain that curated online persona, it must lead to severe psychological dissonance when the cameras are off. The reality has to clash violently with the script.
It does. The pressure to present a flawless online reality when the offline reality is messy or crumbling creates severe internal conflict. This tension frequently manifests as contempt for the non-performing partner.
So the spouse becomes an obstacle.
They become an obstacle or a poor co-star who is ruining the algorithm's script. Because when the validation from strangers is prioritized over the spouse's actual intimacy and needs, the spouse is just in the way.
So when the spouse decides to leave or refuses to play along, as we're about to see in these tragic cases, it's not just an emotional rejection for the influencer, it's an existential and a financial threat to their entire supply chain.
That is the prerequisite for catastrophic violence. When the partner threatens the narrative, the narcissistic rage is compounded by the fear of losing the audience, the core source of both ego and income. This psychological displacement is the toxic origin point for the cases where the digital world completely overrides biological reality.
And that leads us right into our case files, where the simulation actively cannibalizes the biological world. Our first category of case studies demonstrates this digital displacement.
And this first case from Sinan, South Korea, is morally and forensically critical. It's the defining study of how the dopamine feedback loop of internet gaming disorder can lead to lethal neglect. It overrides our most basic biological survival imperatives.
This was the case of Kim Jae-bim and Kim Yin-jong. They were unemployed, impoverished, but in the world of the MMORPG Prius Online, they were successful, they were powerful, and most importantly, they were good parents to their virtual daughter, the Anima.
The game was designed to offer immediate, clean, tangible feedback for good parenting. The Anima would grow, show affection, gain skills based on their effort. This was in sharp contrast to their biological daughter, a tiny, premature infant requiring constant, demanding, thankless, real-world care.
So the infant represented messiness and unpredictability. The Anima represented predictable reward.
Absolutely. Their neurological reward system effectively swapped the two children. They found more satisfaction in the simulation, and the routine they established was just chilling. They'd leave their apartment for 10, 12-hour stretches to go to internet cafes, PC bangs, to focus solely on leveling up their virtual child,
Leaving their actual baby alone.
leaving their physical daughter alone. The intermittent feedings they provided were grossly insufficient. And in September 2009, after one of these marathon gaming sessions, they came home to find their infant dead of prolonged malnutrition.
It's a terrifying precedent. The dopamine feedback loop proved more powerful than parental instinct. The police said the couple had simply lost their will to live a normal life. The game was their escape.
The real child was a distraction. The virtual child was their purpose.
Okay, moving to the UK, we have the Avatar affair. This was a legally significant case that forced courts to grapple with the definition of infidelity in a non-physical space.
Right. This involved Amy Taylor and David Pollard, who spent a lot of time in the virtual world Second Life. Amy, using her avatar, Laura Skye, discovered David's avatar, Dave Barmy, in a sexually compromising position with another female avatar on a virtual sofa.
And David's defense was, well, pretty logical from a certain point of view. No physical touch, no cheating. It's just pixels.
It was the cornerstone of digital resistance. But Amy filed for divorce on the grounds of unreasonable behavior.
But isn't it fundamentally different? I mean, if the physical body never moves, where does the crime actually reside? Is this just judicial overreach, or is the mind truly the new locus of adultery?
That is the critical question this case answered. Amy argued, and I think very compellingly, that the betrayal was in the allocation of intimacy. She said the emotional energy, the time, the affection David invested in the virtual relationship were resources stolen directly from their real marriage. She famously said the betrayal hurts just as much.
And the court accepted this, establishing the precedent of virtual infidelity. The betrayal was defined by emotional devotion and stolen time, not just physical contact.
And in a strange twist, it was noted that the couple had actually divorced within the game before their real-life divorce, which perfectly illustrates that online-offline bleed.
That's incredible. And we see this with even more trivial apps, right? The Pokemon Go craze.
Yes, the gamification of neglect. That 2016 craze caused more than just traffic problems. Divorce lawyers reported dozens of cases where the relentless obsession with hunting virtual creatures caused serious marital breakdown.
Because spouses were being ignored during intimate moments, neglecting chores, abandoning family time to go hunt Pokemon.
Exactly. One husband in Russia divorced his wife explicitly for neglecting her family to play. It shows how quickly an addictive digital loop can just override core family obligations.
We also have cases where technology becomes an accidental detective.
Yes, the unintended consequences of ubiquitous digital surveillance. The most famous example is that man in Peru in 2018. He was using Google Maps Street View, just planning a vacation.
Right.
He zoomed in on a bridge and spotted his wife sitting intimately on a bench with another man. He recognized her outfit, her stance. He filed for divorce immediately. The infinite, persistent archive of the digital world means secrets rarely stay secret.
And sometimes the platform is used as the mechanism of emotional execution. We've seen multiple cases where one spouse changes their Facebook status to single without any prior conversation.
That is a devastating act of public humiliation. Friends and family learn the marriage is over from a notification, not a conversation. It turns a deeply personal tragedy into a brutal public spectacle.
All right, let's move into the darkest phase of our analysis. Cases where social media is actively used as a stage for abuse, where that narcissistic supply chain leads to catastrophic, lethal violence.
This is where we enter the influencer kill chain.
Starting with the TikTok star murders, the case of Ali Abulaban, known as Jin Kid. This is the textbook example of the influencer god complex reaching its lethal conclusion. He had nearly 1 million TikTok followers for his impressions, but he was masking a profile of profound abuse and control in his marriage to Anna.
His marriage was explicitly content. His fame became his entitlement, this belief that his audience validated his right to obedience from his wife. So when Anna, fearing for her safety, moved out of their San Diego apartment, it wasn't just a separation for him,
It was a narrative collapse.
a complete narrative collapse. The main character was being written out of his own successful show, and he responded using a technical Trojan horse.
Right, he vandalized their apartment, but then he hid a listening application, a spyware app, on his 5-year-old daughter's iPad.
He transformed a child's toy into a dedicated surveillance device. He had to monitor the content of the relationship, even if he couldn't physically control the stars.
And this is where the digital world becomes the immediate trigger for murder. On October 21st, 2021, Ali remotely activated the app. He heard Anna laughing with her male friend, Rayburn Barron.
And it was the sound of her joy that was completely independent of him and his narrative, that was the immediate violent trigger. He drove straight to the apartment and shot both Anna and Rayburn to death.
But the aftermath is the chilling proof of this influencer's delusion. He didn't immediately call 911.
No. He called his mother to confess, and then he posted content on TikTok alluding to the crime. He was trying to maintain connection to the audience, even with blood on his hands. His legal defense later argued that fame had so messed with his brain that he genuinely believed he was the protagonist of an unscripted reality show.
The violence was his attempt to edit or delete the person who threatened his narrative.
Exactly. And if Abulaban was annihilation for fame, the Daddy of Five case, Mike and Heather Martin, was the slow, methodical destruction of a family for profit. This perfectly illustrates what we call algorithmic grooming.
They realized the YouTube algorithm rewarded high-emotion, high-conflict content. So their family channel, with over 750,000 subscribers, became a business where the product they sold was the documented trauma of their children, especially their son Cody.
The infamous ink prank is horrifying evidence. They staged a scene with invisible ink on the carpet, then screamed obscenities at Cody until he was hysterical with fear. Only then did they reveal it's just a prank. The emotional torture was just packaged as content.
The kids showed clear, chronic signs of trauma. The Martins were eventually charged with child neglect and lost custody, but their defense was it was just for the show.
And that's terrifyingly instructive. It shows the power of the platform to incite cruelty. The camera didn't just record the abuse, it necessitated and amplified it because the platform's financial incentives rewarded that escalation of distress.
The marriage became a business partnership dedicated to sacrificing their children's well-being for viral fame.
Now we move to the most extreme form of performance, using social media as a broadcast network to seize the narrative after committing murder.
The Facebook Live confession. The Column murder.
In Column, Kerala, India, Isaac suspected his wife, Shalini, of infidelity and resented her independence. He murdered her with a knife. But it's what he did next that defines this criminological shift.
He started a Facebook live stream.
Immediately. With blood on his hands, he addressed the camera calmly for over 2 minutes. Not expressing remorse, but systematically listing his grievances. He accused her of disobedience, framing the murder as a necessary corrective action.
This is pure performative violence. He used Facebook Live to bypass the judicial system and immediately appealed to a digital jury. He wanted to control the postmortem narrative before the police even secured the scene.
And if that was about narrative seizure, the Coimbatore horror involving S. Balamurigan was about pure digital objectification and calculated terror.
He also suspected his wife, Shripriya, of infidelity. After hacking her to death, he reached for his smartphone. He took a selfie that included his own face and her mutilated corpse.
And then uploaded this unspeakably gruesome image as his WhatsApp status. The caption read, "The payment for betrayal is death."
Using WhatsApp status, that's a feature for casual ephemeral updates.
And he used it to broadcast terror to his entire contact list. It's a profound act of psychological violence. The intent was clearly to traumatize Shripriya's family and friends who saw it, and to stamp his ultimate undeniable digital ownership over her, even in death.
All right, our next category shifts to how social media facilitates stalking, and in the most tragic cases, creates this infinite memory of shame that leads to lethal self-harm.
We call this cyber-physical stalking and clout chasing.
Starting with the murder of Molly McLaren in the UK. This is a textbook case where the digital toxicity was the clear precursor to lethal physical violence.
Molly met Joshua Stimson on Tinder. When she ended it, he refused to accept it. The harassment immediately went to Facebook. Stimson posted derogatory, isolating lies about Molly. This was a deliberate attempt to poison her social well-being before the physical attack.
And she reported it.
Crucially, she reported the online harassment and threats to the police. But the officers, ill-equipped to recognize the lethal potential of persistent digital threats, they just called Stimson. They failed to implement robust protection. They failed to see the online-offline bleed.
And Stimson used the OSINT he'd gathered, the places she tagged, her gym location, to track her physically. He stalked her to her gym and stabbed her 75 times in her car.
It's a profound indictment of the legal system's failure to recognize online harassment as a direct, lethal threat.
Then we have the murder of 17-year-old Bianca Devins by Brandon Clark. This reveals the darkest intersection of relationship violence, digital pathology, and the internet's gore community.
Clark, enraged after seeing Bianca kiss another man, committed the crime explicitly for the internet.
He slit her throat and immediately photographed her decapitated body, uploading the gruesome image to Discord and Instagram with the caption, "I'm sorry, Bianca."
The motive was immediate infamy, clout chasing. He wanted the act to go viral, and it did. The images were seized by the gore community and incel subcultures on 4chan, reposted thousands of times. Trolls actively sought out and tagged Bianca's family in the horrific photos, ensuring they witnessed their daughter's final image.
The internet provided the distribution network for this profound evil, and the platform's failure to detect the gore quickly led to Bianca's law in New York, criminalizing the sharing of crime scene images for harassment.
Now we have to address the lethality of non-consensual intimate imagery, or NCII, and revenge porn, where the weapon is the infinite persistence of digital shame.
The suicide of Tiziana Cantone in Naples, Italy, is a devastating testament to this. She sent a private intimate video to her ex-boyfriend and a few others. It was leaked and went immediately viral.
Her phrase, from the video, "Are you filming? Bravo," was instantly extracted and became a national meme in Italy. Printed on t-shirts, remixed by DJs, parodied on TV, she was completely stripped of her humanity and became a national punchline.
And she fought back, winning a landmark right to be forgotten lawsuit.
But in a profound failure of the legal system, she was ordered to pay the legal costs of the company she sued, and the Streisand effect just ensured the video kept reappearing.
She changed her name, she moved, but the internet followed her. She couldn't escape the constant digital mockery, and unable to escape the infinite memory of shame, she took her own life.
It proves the digital world never forgets, and that shame, when weaponized by virality, can be lethal.
We also have to acknowledge cases where the platform enables co-conspirators. Mark and Tara Millman used social media to hunt for victims together, demonstrating predatory tag teaming.
They used Instagram messaging to systematically groom a vulnerable 13-year-old girl. They built trust through sustained digital conversation, then abducted and abused her, recording the acts on their phones as trophies of their shared crimes. Social media gave them the ability to efficiently filter and find vulnerable targets.
Finally, we should revisit the compulsive digital risk that destroyed the political career of Anthony Weiner and his marriage to Huma Abedin. It shows how digital compulsion can override all logic and self-preservation.
Weiner's destruction was fueled by an addiction to sexting strangers. His career ended because he accidentally posted a lewd photo publicly on Twitter when it was meant to be a direct message, a tiny digital slip that unraveled his entire life and powerful marriage.
And the consequences just snowballed from there. That initial digital transgression didn't just end his marriage. The seizure of his devices later complicated a major national investigation. The addiction to the thrill of digital transgression overrode everything.
We have to pivot now to the new frontier. If social media was the man in the middle, the rapid deployment of artificial intelligence is the ultimate reality distortion field. It's actively turning our personal images and voice recordings into weapons used against our partners.
The statistics on deepfakes are terrifying, specifically because they are overwhelmingly weapons of intimate betrayal. Research shows a staggering 96% of all deepfakes are non-consensual sexual content, and they target women overwhelmingly. This is weaponized digital revenge.
And the growth rate is exponential, fueled by accessible technology. Deepfake videos are up 900% since 2019. And that spike is because specialized networks and simple, cheap apps, often on platforms like Telegram, have democratized the ability to create convincing, malicious content.
So the ability to fabricate infidelity or abuse is now available to anyone with a grudge and a smartphone.
Exactly. The primary mechanism of destruction is fabricating infidelity and profound psychological abuse. Abusers create fake videos or audio to prove cheating, exploiting that inherent human bias that seeing is believing to cause irreversible doubt.
We have a documented case example of this, the gaslit wife case reported in 2025.
In that case, the husband created multiple deepfake videos of his wife in various sexual situations. And even though the wife knew intellectually they were fabricated, the intense realism led her to start doubting her own memory and sanity. She experienced severe psychological distress. The digital lie began to overwrite her subjective reality.
And there was the hotel rendezvous fake, a shocking case of targeted psychological warfare. A woman received a convincing deepfake video from her estranged husband showing her checking into a hotel with another man. It nearly ended her marriage before expensive forensic analysis proved it was fake.
This weapon is now pervasive in the legal system. Fake, deepfake audio or video is being submitted in divorce and custody battles. We're seeing AI-generated audio presented to courts implicating a partner in abuse. Disproving it requires expensive, specialized forensics, prolonging legal battles, and eroding judicial trust.
And beyond the betrayal within a marriage, AI is supercharging external romance scams, leading victims to abandon their real partners for illusions and suffer catastrophic financial ruin.
The scale is immense. U.S. romance scam losses hit over $823 million in 2024, and that's likely a dramatic underestimate. AI has been cited as driving a 456% increase in generative AI fraud reports.
And the sophistication is the key now. These aren't just badly worded emails.
No. Scammers use advanced AI chatbots to manage hundreds of victims 24/7, maintaining convincing, personalized conversations. They use deepfake video and voice cloning, often sourcing the victim's real partner's voice from social media, to provide proof of life for the fake persona. The illusion is virtually perfect.
The emotional abandonment is profound. Cases like the AI Brad Pitt divorce scam, where a married woman fell completely for a scammer using AI-generated celebrity videos. She was so convinced she was in a real relationship with the star that she divorced her husband and lost all her savings.
And consider the tragic voice-cloned military husband case. Scammers cloned a deployed soldier's voice from his public social media videos. They used it to call his wife, convincing her he was in an emergency and needed funds. She drained their joint accounts of $300,000.
The technology weaponized their love and trust against them. And this brings us back to the idea that social media, while often the source of the lie, can also be used as a public ledger of truth.
Right, the 2024 viral TikTok series, Who TF Did I Marry? By Risa Tisa. She detailed her marriage to a pathological liar she called Legion.
Legion fabricated everything, his job, his finances, even fake digital documents. When Risa exposed the deception, she used TikTok to forensically dissect the marriage for millions of people.
In this case, social media acted as a public ledger of truth, a tool for digital vigilantism, allowing her to reclaim her narrative. But that act of truth-telling required total, permanent public exposure. The cost of reclaiming her narrative was her privacy.
We've conducted a harrowing deep dive, analyzing cases from negligent homicide due to gaming addiction all the way to murder broadcast live and AI-fueled deception. The synthesis of all this data is chillingly clear. The digital simulation, driven by algorithms optimized for attention theft, is actively overtaking biological empathy and trust.
The smartphone is no longer just a communication tool. It's the relationship's black box. It records our secrets, our movements, our desires, and it acts as the constant man-in-the-middle attack, perpetually eroding the intimacy it claims to facilitate.
And we have to acknowledge the emerging dangers on the horizon. Deepfake infidelity, where fabricated evidence is used to gaslight partners, and the growing threat of smart home stalking, where abusers leverage connected devices, locks, thermostats, speakers to perpetrate domestic abuse.
So if the defense mechanism is lacking, how do we establish some kind of cyber hygiene in our relationships? We have 3 key recommendations.
First, digital prenups. Couples have to establish clear, communicated boundaries early on. Talk about protocols for posting, for location sharing, for access to devices, and how conflict will be resolved offline. If you don't set these boundaries consciously, the platform's default settings will dictate them for you.
Second, rigorous cyber hygiene. Conduct regular audits of your devices for spyware and listening apps, especially during high conflict periods or separation. As the Ali Abulaban case proved, a listening app on a child's toy can swiftly become a murder weapon.
And third, embrace the kill switch mentality. You have to recognize when the algorithm is feeding your paranoia. If you find yourself spending more time investigating your spouse's digital life, scrolling old likes, checking their location, than you do talking to them, you are no longer in a healthy relationship. You're an OSINT analyst.
That is the moment you must log off. Initiate the relationship's kill switch before the system crashes completely.
And what's the final thought for our listeners?
The screen is a mirror, and the digital feedback loop often reflects only our deepest insecurities and our narcissistic impulses. We have to actively protect our real lives with constant awareness and firm digital boundaries. We need to stay vigilant in the cyber midnight, lest we look up from the keyboard and find that the monster of digital interference has already won the war for human intimacy.